Hi everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of Best of British Blackwell. First I'd just like to start off with a little apology. The amount of content that I'm putting out there on YouTube in particular hasn't been great lately. There's a few reasons for that which I won't go into on this video, but rest assured you're going to see a lot more content from me, a lot more cooks planned and coming up, so very much looking forward to smashing out the content there. And also, you know, just a reminder guys, if you do like the content on this channel, please do give it a like. The likes and the shares and the subscriptions really do help me. What are we going to be doing today? So today, going for a nice and simple recipe. The sun is shining out there, so I'm going to be getting on the barbecue and I'm going to be grilling up some lovely Bavette steak. Now, Bavette is I wouldn't say it's a rare cut, but it's a cut of steak that we don't tend to use in the UK all that often, but blimey, are we missing out, because it is a fantastic piece of meat when grilled and when treated right, and it's as flavoursome and as good as any other steak out there, and it's probably about half the price. So in a minute, we're going to come over, I'm going to show you the piece of meat and we're going to butcher it down. Talking of butchery, you may have noticed on my Instagram feeds and my Facebook page, which I'll give you the links to down there in a moment, we've been working really closely with one of the best knife makers in the world in Savernake Knives. They've been really generous in providing me with a set of their knives, which are part of their DNA Summer barbecue range. I want to take the time to show you these knives and talk to you a little bit about the range and the benefits that having these knives, which are absolutely top quality, will bring to your cooking game. So come over, let's have a look at everything that we're doing. Let's have a look at the meat and let's get started. Okay, so before we get started on this meat, just cast your eyes on these, and again, massive thank you to Savernake Knives for sending these to me. This is their barbecue set, so this is their summer DNA collection designed specifically with barbecuers in mind. And you know, why have they got barbecuers in mind? It's because they know that we like to class ourselves as a mixture between a butcher and a chef, and when we're barbecuing, you kind of have to do a little bit of butchery and a little bit of chef work. So they've split their knives down into kind of two sections. As part of this collection, you're getting two chef knives. So you've got the mini chef knife here, or the medium size chef knife, which is absolutely superb and razor sharp, perfectly balanced. The guys have been generous enough to get my logo on there. Hopefully you can see that. They offer that for free as part of the customization. If you were to go and buy a set of these knives, they do that for all of their products. You've got the option there to have complimentary personalized blade engraving, which is fantastic. Here's the large chef knife. Again, perfectly balanced piece, really sits nicely in the hand. All of these blades are made from 60 HRC carbon steel, which for the layman really is the perfect kind of optimal hardness. So it's not too soft that you're gonna blunt the blade every time you use it, but it's not so hard that it's gonna be brittle every time you sharpen it. So it's absolutely perfect. And all of the best knives in the world are made with that kind of grade of carbon steel. They also come with a lifetime guarantee as well. And the best thing about these knives is the customization options. So my knife has been made from green whale, which is an incredibly rare material. I was very lucky to get hold of this. Very grateful to the guys for making these for me. And I've gone with the blue inlay there because I'm a big Chelsea fan, so I thought I'd put my team colours in there, and I think it works quite well. So I'm really happy with those. This section here is obviously like the butchery section, so you get a lovely boning knife there, which again is absolutely razor sharp and perfect for cutting the meat, and we're going to be using that in a minute on this Bavette. We've got the cleaver, which every decent barbecuer needs in their set, and this is going to be good for getting you through kind of those huge chunks of meat which require a little bit more force. And then here's the king of the collection. This is the steak knife, the butcher's steak knife. It's a bull-nosed steak knife, you can see. We've got the bit of a bulge at the end there, which just helps with the balance of the knife. And again, you know, these things are absolutely top quality. So look on the links below in this video to go and check out this range. There's a number of different kind of discount options available to you for their first time buyers. And if you work with our partners at barbecues2u.co.uk and order through those guys, there's also a discount on there as well. So please do have a look. in terms of the customization, you can do pretty much whatever you want with these handles. Go onto their website, the link is below, have a little play around and have a look at the designs that you can come up with. But some of the sets that are available in the barbecue range, the Summer DNA collection, are like a black and hot pink, denim and neon, which is really outstanding. You've got a red and anthracite, and you've got walnut and red as well. And part of their range is also bespoke design for either the Kamado Joe enthusiasts like myself, where the blade handles are red, or the big green egg where they're green. You know, so there's kind of no end to what you can do with the Savernake knives, and I'm just internally grateful for them for sending me these blades. And let's put them to work and see how they get on with this Bavette. This is our Bavette steak. Now, to look at it, doesn't look anything special, does it? But let me tell you where the unique quality of this meat comes from is this grain. Hopefully you can see there's lots of grain in this meat, and they're running in kind of the same direction. So from the back to the front, all of the grain is running down here. It's quite a substantial piece of meat, which we are going to want to thin out a little bit using our boning knife there, and perhaps even our steak knife. But again, as I turn it over, you can see the grains running through here. This, if you cut it in the wrong way, can start to become tough. So what you've got to do is you've got to cut pre-cooking with the grain to make sure you get a nice thin piece of meat. But then once you're cooking, once it's cooked, you need to cut against the grain to make sure that you're not getting the really tough pieces of meat. So there's a little bit of technique to it, but trust me, there's so much flavour in here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is get it onto this board and try and thin this meat out a little bit. What we really want to do is open it up a little bit like a book and make sure it's nice and thin. Okay, so I've just spun the camera around so you can see what I'm doing a little bit, because I am right-handed. First thing I'm going to do is be going in with this boning knife and trying to open this up a little bit. It's almost like butterflying it. So flat hand down on the meat, and we're going to take this blade, and as you can see, hot knife through butter. Look at this with this boning knife. I'm going to start with the boning knife, and I'll probably, once I'm happy that I've got to my desired thickness, which is about that, I'm probably going to finish it off now with the steak knife, because the steak knife is going to go through this nice and easy. So follow my line with the steak knife. Should have glued my chopping board down a little bit better, but we're going to go nice and slow, and we're just going to thin this out a little bit. Here we go. I think with my previous knives this probably would have taken me 4 or 5 attempts, but there we go, we're through first time round. Now hopefully now you can see in much greater detail those grains that I was talking about. This piece of meat here has almost 3 different types. It's got a really tight grain here on this piece, relatively loose grain with different directions on this piece, and then, you know, equally quite tight grains here. What you can also see is we've got some sinew here. So we're going to continue the butchery now, and what we're going to do is we're going to break this steak down now into kind of component pieces and separate steaks. And the way I do that is just by running down the joints here. That's one beautiful piece. What we'll also do is trim out some of this interconnective tissue here, which isn't that good to eat. But as you can see from this steak, it's such a lean piece of meat, you know, that look at that. There's plenty of meat still left on there, but, you know, look at the meat we've got left. There's hardly any fat in here, but that's where this steak comes into its own, because usually I would say, well, the fat is where the flavour is. It isn't on this steak. The fat, there's hardly any on here. The meat is absolutely where the flavour is on this steak, and it's absolutely divine. So I'm just going to cut out this piece of interconnective tissue there, and I will probably leave that as one steak itself. Beautiful. Here we go, guys, done trimming up the meat, and just have a look at the waste that we've got here. Little bits of sinew and interconnective tissue, but look at that. We're left with 2 huge steaks here, which I'll be cooking this one today. And these here, you know, nice little strip steaks here, which are, you know, equally just as good. And you can see that we've kind of portioned them up according to the grain and where the grain runs. Bavette steak, what is it? So actually in the UK we normally call it skirt steak. The term Bavette steak is French. Wonderful piece of meat. I got this particular piece of meat from my local butchers, Blade and Bone, who are based in West Sussex. I'll put their Facebook details below. Give them a visit. Lovely piece of meat, deep red, which means you're going to get that lovely beefy meaty texture, and you know, it's just a wonderful piece of meat to cook with. I'm relatively new to it, but you know, now I've found it, I don't really want to cook with anything else. It's absolutely fantastic. And what we're going to be making with this today, we're going to be whacking this on the grill. We're going to be rubbing it up, coating it up with some nice flavours, whacking it on the grill outside on the Kamado, and we're going to be making some beautiful steak sandwiches with it. Just before we crack on with the next step of this video, I wanted to show you this in all of its glory before I get it all dirty and nasty. I'd like to send a big thank you to Gavin Ball from Smokin Steel, who you can find on Facebook, and I'll put their link in the video here, for this wonderful plancha that he made me for my Kamado Joe. As you can see, it's got my logo on it. Really grateful. This is my first time using it, and I'm sorry, Gavin, it's taken me a while to get round to using this, but I'm just starting to season it up now, ready for its first cook, and it's going to entertain that lovely Bavette. So go check them out, guys. Lovely accessories for your Kamado. Okay, so now we're going to turn our focus to what we're going to rub this meat with to give it some flavour. Well, we have to be a little bit careful with this because this is heavy on flavour already. This is going to be a deep, beefy flavour that we've got anyway. So we just need to bring that out a little bit, and you really don't need much. The ideal candidate for this really is the Angus & Oink Black Gold, which is the supercharged salt, pepper, garlic. That's all you really need. We want that beefy flavour, and we don't want to kind of tinge it with anything else. So really, all I'm going to do is get a little bit of Worcester sauce, which I always find acts as a wonderful binder. So basic Liam Perrins Worcester sauce. I'm sure other brands are available, but I use Liam Perrins. Plenty of that, just to act as a nice binder. This has also got a nice deep, rich flavour as well, so that's not going to do any harm. And a nice liberal dusting of this beautiful black gold. And that's it, really. Just make sure everything's covered. And we're going to go get this on the grill, and we're going to try and cook this to a medium rare, but I'll show you that next. Okay, so here we go. Got the grill nice and hot. As you can see, getting a lovely layer of seasoning on top of this steel plancha. And we're going to go straight into the middle. This lovely piece of Bavette. We're looking to cook this medium, so don't be too scared about dragging it off too early and getting it back on there if you feel it's a little bit under. The key with this is the two things. It's the resting time, and it's the way you carve this steak up running along the grain. So let's give this time to cook. We'll drag this off and then we'll serve this up. Time for us to give this steak a turn. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. You'll notice on here that I haven't got this Kamado set too hot. What we don't want to do is kind of shock this meat. If you cook it too hot, too hard, too quickly, that muscle's going to tense up, and this is going to really tighten up, and you just won't get the flavour out of it. So it's best to go not low and slow, but we're just going for a nice gentle sear. You will see that this meat will tense up a little bit, and you'll lose a little bit of the size, but you won't lose any of the flavour, I promise you. So let's just keep going with this, keeping an eye on it and turning it fairly regularly. So our steak has just come off the barbecue. As you can see, beautifully seared. All we're going to do now is give that at least 10 minutes resting time, preferably 15. Just let that meat relax, reabsorb all of those juices, and that's going to be a beautiful tender piece of meat. While we're waiting for that to rest, we're going to start working on the accompaniment to our dish. So I'm going to be making some lovely Bavette sandwiches. I'm going to be using some horseradish cream. I'm going to be using some rocket because that goes wonderfully with Bavette. But first I'm also going to use some tomatoes and some red onion, and I'm going to be prepping that using this Savernake small chef knife. And really all I want is a few decent slices of red onion. Again, all we're looking for here is flavours that sit well with the beef. We're not looking for anything to overpower the beef. We're looking flavours just to work with it and complement it. Now we've got a few slices of onion. What I'm going to do is just gently slice these lovely cherry tomatoes, which are going to bring a bit of juiciness to that sandwich. And just look how effortlessly this knife is cutting through these tomatoes. Please don't comment on my chopping skills. Savernake work with some of the best chefs in the world. If they are watching, you know, they're probably shuddering at my inability to cut professionally. I mean, just some of the chefs that they work with, Matt Warswick, Charlie Jeffrey, Jasmine Hemsley, just to name a few. I mean, just, you know, the absolute top names in the cooking world. Savernake provide these guys with all of their knives. You know, you might have seen some of the Instagram posts that I put up recently of doing a little promotional shoot with Charlie Jeffrey from MasterChef Professionals finalist last year. That was a great deal of fun. But honestly, guys, these are just such a great piece of kit. Okay, now we've got our sides ready. We're going to toast up some bread and then we're going to carve this meat. So this beautiful piece of Bavette has been resting now for 10 or 15 minutes. And I'll be honest with you, I literally now just can't wait to carve into this. So I'm going to take it off this board and we're going to carve into it. But importantly, we're not going to carve with the grain, which is running this way. If we do that, this meat is going to be tough. We're going to carve against the grain and we're going to separate those grains into much smaller pieces, which are easier to chew and not as tough. And this is going to be wonderful. I really hope I've cooked this to perfection. Take it from this board here, just put it on my chopping board. Now, before everybody comments that the blade I'm using here is overkill for this piece of meat, you're absolutely right. But actually, what's the point in having a 10-inch bullnose steak knife if you're not going to use it on pretty much everything you're going to cook? So I make no apologies for using this knife. It's a wonderful piece of kit, and any opportunity I have to get this knife out and use it, I'm going to take. So here we go. First cut. And I'm cutting this into thin strips, so not going to make them too thick, nice thin strips to separate those grains. But hopefully you can see immediately that we've got beautiful medium Bavette here. Lovely and juicy. As we get a little bit deeper into the meat, it's going to get even juicier, but hopefully it should stay that perfect medium. Again, I'll get loads of comments saying, no, that's not medium. You know, it's always very much up for debate. But just take a look at some of these strips that we're getting off of here. Beautiful meat, nice and stringy. That's what we want. We want those grains stretching out a little bit. We want a little bit of maneuverability in there. As I've said before, this is not the most expensive steak you're going to get. This is actually amongst one of the cheapest. But honestly, the flavour in here is wonderful. It's not going to be as tender as a fillet. It's not going to be even as tender as a sirloin. But it's going to be one of the best steaks you've ever eaten, I promise you. And just look how that's cooking, how it's cooked, how it's seared. We've got that lovely Angus Noink black gold on the outside. This beautiful knife is cutting through this like a knife through butter. Last slice here before I slice my finger off. Just look at that. What we need to do now is get this into a sandwich. So here we go, just take a look at this. Only way to serve this up really for me is sandwiches. Sunday morning, Bavette sandwich, well, Sunday brunch I should say, if you've had a late start like me. Just look at this meat. For me, that's a perfect medium. Some people would turn around and say that's a little bit on the rare side. That's absolutely fine. You've still got your grill on out there. If you want it done a little bit more, whack it back on there. But for me, this is absolutely perfect. And what better than just layering up a couple of beautiful sandwiches with plenty of meat. Don't be stingy. Get the meat on there. This one here, we've got some beautiful horseradish and red onion. Gonna load it up with some meat there. This one at the front, we've got some tomato and red onion. For those not too interested in the creamy heat of the horseradish, I'm just gonna layer these up. What I also love to add to these, particularly where you've got the horseradish and the red onion, is some balsamic, and I like to put that just on top, just as a little seasoning. This is a lovely aged balsamic. Why not put it on both, see how we get on, just to cover that off. Adds a little bit of acidity, cuts through that lovely deep umami from the Angus & Wink Black Gold SPG. And then to finish, because you've got to have your greens on a Sunday, just get a nice handful of rocket on there, stick it on both. The pepperiness of the rocket's really going to work very, very well with both of these sandwiches, and we've got it on some toasted sourdough here, and we've got it on a ciabatta there. Let's wade in. And again, just to keep all those people happy that don't like me using knives way too big for the job, I've got this beautiful steak knife again, just to cut this. My wife tells me off most of the time for getting this knife out when it's absolutely not required, but my God, is it a fantastic piece of kit. Oh, and just get that noise. Look, people, have a look at that. Time for the first bite. Oh. Wow, that is so good. Honestly, you know, I hadn't really tried Bavette before. I'd heard of it, always given it a little bit of a swerve because people said to me it can be tough, it can be chewy. Okay, that is not, as like I said, as tender as a fillet, but my God, it's got so much more flavour. The flavours work wonderfully with everything that we put in that sandwich there, and it's absolutely superb. But honestly, guys, give that Bavette a go. Go to your local butchers, say, have you got any skirt steak? Have you got any Bavette? Honestly, it really will just open your eyes up to a whole new world of kind of beef flavour, because that's got the flavours of a Sunday joint of beef, but it's, you know, just so much kind of softer and doesn't take as long and no faffing around. I've literally knocked this together in 15 minutes. Please do give it a go. I really hope you've enjoyed the video. Once again, sorry that my content's been lacking a little bit, but you're going to see a lot more from me. Please do check out my social channels. We've got a wonderful outdoor cooking channel on Facebook, which is growing by the day. Lots of people joining, so thank you. Links to all of that down below. Check out our Instagram page. If you've liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. It will really help me spread the content. And again, thank you to Steel Smokin for the wonderful plancha that we cooked out, Bavette on there. And a massive thank you to the guys at Savernake. Please check the details below, links below. Get onto their barbecue range. Honestly, as you've seen from the kit that I've got here, you will not be sorry. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.